all seen, some of you see, or you might have seen the movie called Billy Elliot. And okay, so you know that's a little bit like my story. Here's this young man in a small remote city, which has to be probably Utah, which is not so remote. But at that point, there was really very little dancing, very few male dancers. It's changed now. But at that time, I was one of the few guys in the city who danced. And so I had to sort of convince people, why am I dancing? Well, what are you doing this for? Well, I'm sure kicking a ball around or something. So this Billy Elliot, when I saw it, I said, wow, that is, I mean, I cried. I said, my God, that's my life. And so at any rate, I tried to figure out why was I so attracted to dance. And I remember that I used to go see the Gene Kelly movies and the Fred Astaire movies, and it was such a joy to watch. And here were two men up there dancing. So it validated it for me. It's okay for a man to dance. So, but there really wasn't many opportunities that I could find in the city I lived in. And so my grandmother and my mother took me to see my uncle performing in an accordion concert in Salt Lake City. And lo and behold, dancing on the stage was a male. He was doing tap dancing. And I said, wow, this is a real live human being that's up there dancing. I said, I guess I could do it too. It's not just people in the movies, it's about me. Personally, I can do that same kind of thing. So I came back and I took a few tap dancing classes in the city program. It didn't really fit for me, but then a little later I found my teacher there who led me on. But before that, I was working at the junior high school with a coach called Lob Collins. It was a middle school. We all had to learn baseball and basketball and soccer and boxed and all those kinds of sports kind of activities, where I learned a lot about how the body moves through the space, how it organizes itself, how you have to focus and do various kinds of things. So it really, years later when I thought back about it, I thought, wow, I really learned a lot during that period. And it gave me a lot of background kind of training for when I really did get into serious study of the dance. So anyway, I met this wonderful teacher. Her name was Colleen Collins Smith, and the Colleen Collins Smith, but the Collins, Lob Collins was my coach. I found out later that he was the uncle of my first teacher. So there's one whole link that took place. I don't know how that happened, but it was very exciting. So Colleen, at the time, had a very small studio. She became a really well-known teacher and choreographer for the whole estate. And during that period, I was the only guy dancing for her. And I danced in nightclubs, I danced on the stage, I danced at television, which was just starting up in Salt Lake City. And so I got that whole kind of background, sort of the beginning of a professional kind of background. Yes, ma'am.
What dancing were you doing? Was it ballroom dancing?
Well,
or female and
well, she was primarily teaching me ballet. And then also we did a lot of musical comedy kind of things. And some of it was kind of like nightclub performances when we would go to some nightclubs. So, but basically I would say my real background is ballet. That's where I really got my training, my strength, and my sort of structure in dance. And so anyway, we did all this performing all around the state of Utah, and so up into Idaho and various kinds of tours. But anyway, Colleen had everybody in her family. By the time she just died recently, a couple of years ago, by the time she had died, all of her children danced, all of her grandchildren, and some of her great-grandchildren. So it's just the whole, everybody, males, females, and she'd bring the people out here to California, to Green Mary, or to Disneyland and so forth, and took them on tours and so forth. Her daughter happens to be at Disney World. He was one of the big choreographers there, a really fine dancer. So anyway, she was a very great influence on me, and she used to bring me to Hollywood during the summers while I was still in high school, and I'd go study at some of the schools out here, and eventually I ended up at a place called the American School of Dance, and the American School of Dance it was on Hollywood Boulevard. It was in an old Hollywood hotel, and by La Brea, I don't know if you know that area up there. Grauman's Chinese Theater's right there. It doesn't exist anymore. But you'd come down these stairs into the basement, and the studios. There were two studios. One of them was used to be the swimming pool. The other one was the ballroom, and they'd been converted into dance studios. So it's kind of, I walked down there. It was like a magic place for me to go to, and I got a scholarship there. So I got to start learning. And the man who had started it was named Eugene Loring, who became my mentor over the years and helped guide me into the next phase of my life. At any rate, this dance school was a conservatory, and it was a mecca for all the dancers who were working in that area. All the movie stars would come there to study, like Jane Fonda, who was one of my people I taught when I started teaching there. And Lisa Minnelli was there, was a small girl, and just you name it, people. Sid Charisse, many stars would come in there. Also, the companies who were performing New York City Ballet, so all the stars would be in class, taking class with you. So I really got a good exposure to that kind of environment, and what those dancers were like, and it taught me a great deal. Well, during that first year, working there, I went to audition for a movie called Carousel at 20th Century Fox. And I don't know why, I was right out of Utah, I got this opportunity to perform with all these wonderful dancers, with the director, the choreographer, the movie stars were there, Shirley Jones and other people like that. So I got this wonderful insight to what it was to work in the movies. And here I was just out of Utah and not that far into it, but it was a great learning experience for me. My dance teacher and I, she took me out to the beach, and I came from the deserts of Utah, and the two of us went to the beach, and we covered up in the sand, and we played, and so forth and so on. And then I decided to stay on in there, and as I told you, went on to the American School of Dance. While I was at the American School, I got a lot of chances to perform, and I worked with Loring's dance players, it was called. And we toured in the United States up into Canada. And so I got a lot of stage performance working with him. I got to choreograph professionally. As he mentioned that I had choreographed for the opera here. I also worked for San Francisco Opera Ballet, and I was a choreographer there and a principal dancer for a while. And so I got that kind of those kinds of experiences. So here we are at the beach, and this next photograph here is I'm dancing in a ballet called Portrait of a Woman, and this is in one of the dance studios at the American School of Dance. We're rehearsing here. This was choreographed by Eugene Loring on my body and Melanie Alexander, and there are the people in the cast as well. And we toured with this for a while. The interesting thing about this is that this is about Loring's a personal kind of hurt he had had in his life, where a loss of love and that sort of thing. So it had a lot of dramatic feelings to it. And I was kind of honored to have this particular dance set on me. Yes, ma'am?
Just use a phrase I've never heard. He choreographed on your body.
Well, my body became his instrument, if you will. I was like his paint or whatever it might be. So he used my body to move through his ideas, his movement ideas. So I made them a reality. I gave them life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is that something that all choreographers do?
I think anytime we start, if I ask all of you to stand up and ask you, we do a group piece where we move next to one another and contact one another, it would be like if I were swirling paint on a canvas of some kind. So I would see your bodies in juxtaposition to one another. I'd see your kind of movement forces and kind of the shapes and spaces of how I perceived this dance, or what I wanted to express, whether it was just an abstraction or if I wanted to express some kind of emotional coming together of all of you coming together in some kind of conflict or together in a loving kind of relationship or what it might be. So yes, I think all choreographers we choreograph on people's bodies, if that makes sense. Okay, yeah, yeah, it's a good question. I appreciate that. Yeah. So this portrait of a woman, as I say, I felt honored to have him choreograph it on my body, to use me as one of the people that could express how he was feeling in this particular relation and at this time. And we got a chance to perform this in a lot of different places during the time. The second one, I think, is also with Melody. Melody was a little bit heavier than I was, and she was very, and it was really hard for me to lift her up and to control her. But anyway, she was a beautiful dancer. She was a professional dancer, she's a choreographer, and has done a lot of things as well. So this next photograph is of, I met up with a lot of young actors, dancers, musicians, singers who were brought together for an Edinburgh festival. And it's an international thing. It was my first time leaving the United States. I'd gone to Canada and Mexico, but I'd never gone abroad to Europe. And so this group of very, very talented people, very inspiring to work with them, they put together John Blankenship, who was the director of this, put it together, brought all of us together for this performance. So we performed the Edinburgh Festival. We did a lot of performances in London, just some television, BBC and Scottish television. And then we also took this over to the Holland Festival to for that same season. And I worked with them for 2 summers. And in this, one of the reasons I want to bring it up too is way at the end, I'm seated, the man standing there. And then the third woman down, a blonde lady there, Jan Plastino. The two of us had never worked together before, and he asked us if the two of us would come and join this group, because he said, "You guys have got something magic. You're very special. I think you're gonna click." And we'd never worked before together. And we danced and partnered one another in this festival, and we were acting and so forth. And there were anyway, she became my partner. we became very, very good companions working together. I'm dancing down here on the bottom, and I'm stretched out. It was an extremely athletic solo that Jan and I choreographed. I had been invited. I had a little company called Dancers Dance Company, and I'd been invited to dance at several festivals in France, and so I needed a solo. And so Jan and I put it together. And it was very athletic. I used props and masks and various things, falling on the floor, jumping in the air, turning. And Hakan doesn't realize I was that athletic because he sees me today. But it was a kind of an amazing experience for me. I loved doing this solo. And when I got back from there, Jan had meantime joined our faculty because she wasn't teaching at UCI. So she became the first, fourth person hired on our faculty and the first woman. I think she was the first woman in the school. There may have been one other, I'm not sure. So Jan and I got together and says, why don't we start a company together? So this is what ended up being called the Penrod Plastina Movement Theater. It was based upon dance and theater. It had a real theatrical kind of thing to it. So it was not just dance, but we call it the first modern dance company in Orange County. So as far as we know, we were the first company who brought it here. And we were based at UCI. And we toured, throughout the United States with it. So this parachute up here on the top everything on this is part of the disjunctive conglomerate. Our kind of our first collaborative ballet that we did. Up here is a parachute that is sinking to the floor, and the head that is peering up out of it is Robert Cohen, who is the founding chair of the drama department at UCI. And we were all, all together. It was very early in the school's history. So Robert worked with us a number of times, and I choreographed a few times for Robert for My Fair Lady. And I also choreographed a couple of, well, I worked with him on this piece, but what he did, he came up with a wonderful, bizarre kind of script as he was moving throughout the stage, shouting and dancing and doing all these kinds of things. So anyway, he was in the initial performances that we did at UCI. Up on the upper right side there, the man leaping through the space was Don Bradburn, who was teaching at the school as well at that time. And he is a really well-known photographer who did like movies, stars of different kinds, but particularly the ballet world. He took pictures of the leading ballerinas as they'd come into town. He'd take photographs of them. So he gave his collection of all these incredible photographs and things to the UCI library in what is called a special collection for dance, and it's one of the most it's one of the important collections in the United States. So his photographs are there. This is called a Sonata for Two. Janet Plastine and I were dancing it. She's really a good, she's a much smaller woman. The two of us, than Melanie was, the two of us really clicked as dancers too. And our company toured all around, so we performed this many times. Sonata for Two, it was called, based on a sort of a play back and forth with the sonata structure. And this next photograph is the same piece, but I sort of broke away and did a little solo while she was doing something else, or a little solo on her part. So we were kind of a contrast going on between the two of us in the dance. So this is when I was at UCI. So
about how old are you there?
Huh?
About how old?
I'm trying to think. I must have been 35, I think. Yeah, because I came to UCI when I was 30. So it probably something like 35, 33, something like that. I'm not really sure. Okay, and the next one is at the cover of our book that Jan and I wrote together. So it opened up a whole new area for me when we wrote this book together. I started thinking about, how do you speak about dance and how do you write about dance? And so we collaborated on the book called The Dancer Prepares. We did this in 1970. It's in its 5th edition now. It's considered kind of a bestseller in the dance world, and it's still going actively. And what I liked about this cover, this B.B. Miller's dance company, which we had on the cover here, and I love it because it shows, again, the excitement of dance, the energy of dance. Here's this woman down here supporting herself on one arm, holding up there with that core, right? Using her real core over there. And the one dancer, it's kind of amazing how it's just lying there in space horizontally, where the other two are leaping upward and defying gravity on that vertical thrust upward. So I love that cover. So that's why I wanted to share it with you, is the movement there. And this next photograph is sort of getting into a little bit more about the department at UCI. I use this T.S. Eliot quote here, to the idea being that, because I happen to love T.S. Eliot for many years. When I graduated from USC, my first degree, I studied a lot of poetry, and this T.S. Eliot was one of my favorite poets. And he did the 4 quartets. I don't know if any of you know the 4 quartets or not, or I've read a lot of T.S. Eliot. But anyway, it's one of those wonderful things about time past and time present and time future. And I always found it very fascinating to go to him as some kind of inspiration for choreographing or getting ideas or thinking about things abstractly and so forth. This next picture shows the bridge from the Humanities Hall going over to the School of the Arts. Well, this wasn't built when we first opened the campus. There are only 8 buildings around there. And when I remember back there, those first years coming to UCI, there was no 405, no 76. MacArthur Boulevard was 2 lanes. There was just a little airport over there, one little building of it. And I'd come drive down from Hollywood. There was like fog there in the morning, and it was mysterious, and it was wonderful. It was very exciting. And today is exciting too on a different level, but then it's very beautiful. And then on Culver Drive, which I eventually bought a house off of there, but at that time there was nothing over there except olive groves, and orange groves. And then there, again, it was 2 lanes as well, going down there. So it was kind of remote. There wasn't a fashion island. There just wasn't anything around here. And of course there was no city of Irvine. And the land had been given to the UC by the Irvine Company, and their goal and idea, I assume, was that eventually they expected it to grow up and be what it is today. A very exciting place to come to. When I come down here and I say, oh my gosh, I like coming into this shopping center, this area here. It's so beautiful now. It's so exciting what's taken place here. And to have been a part of it was very exciting. So anyway, we had this open land. We had 8 buildings around the campus. All of our classes were held in Humanities Hall because we didn't have this complex here. So our first art gallery was on the 2nd floor or 3rd floor over in the Humanities office building. And I remember very clearly one of the art faculty members had the first exhibition there. And his name was Craig Kaufman. And I don't know if you know the name Craig Kaufman, but he's a very, very famous sculptor. His things are made of plexiglass, and they stand out 3-dimensionally in the space. And they had these wonderful colors coming out of them. It was really mind-blowing to see this young man, and to know that he was on the faculty with me. It was a great experience to share that energy. And anyway, when he died, he was in Paris, and the world, the newspaper articles, everything about the man, but he was there at the beginning. And we had that. Downstairs in the Humanities was a place called the Humanities Little Theater. It had about 200 seats in it, and that's where all of our first performances were held. And the dance department was shared with the dance studio, rather, was over in Crawford Hall, and we shared it with the gym, with the physical education. Okay, there was a curtain. We were on the stage during our dances, and there was a curtain between us and like a plastic curtain that opened up, and down on the floor below us was the basketball players. So we had this beautiful music going on, the dancers dancing and leaping and carrying on, and down below we hear bang, 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 hit the ball. So we had this wonderful kind of counter rhythms going on there. It was a really funny time. Well, eventually, when we opened this section up, we now have 5 studios, and they're just exclusively for dance. So we really progressed from our experience on the campus in the beginning. The whole structure too that we were only was about 12 people who were on the faculty. And we were all in the different areas of dance and drama and music and studio arts and history, art history. And we all sat around a table and talked about what we thought the school should be and so forth, and helped form the direction it would go. And we also served on the academic senate. So we were also involved in setting up how the different schools would function together and how the school would run. And it was a very kind of forward-thinking faculty at UCI. So we did a lot of kinds of things that were innovative, that were different from other universities. So at any rate, it was an exciting period of time. That first year, we didn't have much vegetation on the campus. It rained really heavily, and so there was mud everywhere, and we'd have to walk through the mud to get from building to building. And so it was kind of a wonderful thing. The river across the street would flood. So the streets you couldn't get through them, and we'd have to come in through the back way of the campus. Across the street from the campus, you know what it's like now with the town center. Then we had cows over there wandering around through the pastures, and the flies and all the things that goes with the open pasture effect. So that it was really a wonderful, stimulating time because we were building a new university. Nobody knew exactly where it was going to go, but we helped to make decisions on that. And we were not departments at that point in time. That came quite a bit later, quite a few years later. And we were not called a School of the Arts at that point. We were an arts We were the arts, but we weren't named to school. And so as we came across this bridge, as we come across now, it becomes a metaphor for me, a connection to the campus, a bridge to the past, and a bridge to the future. And it's really a wonderful bridge, and it's so excited to go across it, because we used to have to walk down across, below the bridge, across. As you come here, way over on the left here, are some of our first studio. And then the big tall building there is the Claire Trevor School of the Arts, Claire Trevor Theater. And at that time, it was called Village Theater. And after she donated some money and got connected with the university, they named it in her honor. Okay, and this next slide here shows one of our deans, not the first one, but one of our deans who I think was either second or third dean. But here we are in the plaza out there. And they didn't have these trees. They had an olive grove there. And that was Clayton Garrison, the first founders. It was an olive grove. It was beautiful to walk in there, all these wonderful olive trees. You know, it was a grove. And for somebody took it out at one point. So currently we have the Maya Lin sculpture, the fountain there, which is a beautiful addition. And it was very exciting that Jill Beck, our dean at the time, commissioned it, and she came in and installed it for us. So here we are at a graduation thing, and I'd like to point out I'm here in the blue suit, and guess what I have in my hand? And I got rid of those nasty things, but I did smoke at that time. Okay, so that's the plaza, and then next we have Clayton Garrison. Clayton Garrison is the founding dean of the School of the Arts, and he was a visionary. He had this wonderful idea that it was going to be a conservatory in the university, that for the first time students would get grades, get credit. There'd be regular students majoring in a subject, and they would be taught by faculty who were still functioning, still working in the field, not just people who had the theory, but people who were actually out doing it. So that's why he brought all of us in as we went along. A wonderful idea, the conservatory within the university. Here he is in the first season. Is Clayton on the left. It's in Oh, What a Lovely War, it's called. One of our students, Doug Oliver, is up in the upper right there. So Clayton, we show maybe the next. Oh, also the first production they did there was Little Mary Sunshine, was in the first season. The next one is this. Okay, now I forgot in the beginning to talk very much about Eugene Loring. Eugene Loring is the founding faculty, the chairman of the dance department at UCI. A remarkable man. He is a choreographer for American Ballet Theater. It was then called Ballet Theater. So he had all that background. He's been called in the Encyclopedia Britannica refers to him as the first American-born choreographer. So he's one of our heritages in our country in the dance. So here he is. He also choreographed for the Broadway. He did a number of Broadway shows. He did television. He came out here and was doing movies and so forth. So here he is in his title role that he performed in Billy the Kid, which is what's considered sort of an American classic. Over here on the other side is he's dancing in a ballet called A Man from Midian, I think it is, Midian, yeah. And here he is, he's not in a fifth position, right? He's not in the classical kind of positions you associate with ballet, or even in this one here. So he was it's straight lines. It was more like a modern kind of dancer. He was trying to break down the barriers between just being ballet, as we know it, with classical positions and glissades, ensembles, and all these kinds of things that we associate with the ballet, and trying to give it a new kind of a look. And he did this in both ballets. Loring studied with a man called Fokine, who was one of the great, was his teacher. And Loring, when he first came to New York, he was an actor. He had leads in Broadway plays. And he went into the dance. He studied the American school. Names are going to. American ballet. Anybody, Rita, what is it? You know, you dance to the tapes. Come on. American School of Ballet. Okay. New York City Ballet.
No, it's American Ballet Theater.
No, I just said it right. Yeah, and Balanchine had started that in the country. So Loring used to talk about Fokine teaching him a quarter of a pirouette. A pirouette's turning on one leg. He'd say, now a quarter of a pirouette, and then he'd coax him, now a little more, and then a little more. So Loring loved to tell that story to me about his basic beginning and his training. So Loring, when he came to Hollywood, set up the the American School of Dance. That's why I got confused there. The American School of Dance, Hollywood. Okay, he set that up because he wanted to train dancers who could dance for him and do any kind of movement that he wanted from them. So they had to study ballet, modern dance, jazz forms, and also have a background in the theoretical subjects of the ballet. The point of all that is that became the model for the dance department at UCI. And so that's what they're operating under now, today. And so I was a part of that. He hired me to come down and help set up the department. So I was the second person there. I was there in the first year, so I'm considered a co-founder. I helped set up the kind of structure that we were going to operate on over those years. And later I would become the chairman of the department and help take it to another kind of level, bringing in a lot of the theoretical subjects and hiring different kinds of people that I thought would strengthen the program. So I contributed later after Eugene decided to retire. So I think that's a lot about Eugene. Yeah. Okay. Huh? What? Oh yes, Loring here is teaching at UCI, and as Rita likes to point out to me, Rita's sitting over here doing my slides, thank you. Loring was always liked to dress really kind of snazzy. So here he is in his thing with his little beard at that point in his life. And next to him he's in a rehearsal, and next to him is one of our former students, Les Watanabe, over on the right there. And Les went on to become a well-known choreographer and dancer. So he is one of the many dancers we have helped along in their careers. Loring over here on the other side he was a great lecturer, raconteur. He was just a wonderful man on the stage to talk and so forth. So this just shows another side of his personality. Okay, Rita, the next one is again, Loring in this case is teaching in the studio, our large studio, teaching dancers, and he was very meticulous about everything that the dancer did. Everything had to be placed just right. Very much attention to the details of the feet and arms and the back, bending of the back and everything. Everything had to be very perfectly placed, much to the chagrin of many of our dancers who wanted to be a little freer maybe. But he gave them a real strong, solid background. So at any rate, that's Loring. Now the next one, if some of you recognize Robert Cohen. Robert Cohen, of course, was the person who started the first person to chairman, if you will, at in the drama department. And I worked, because we were very fluid in those days, I actually taught acting for the drama department my first year there. And here you see he's a very wonderful actor, a wonderful teacher, and you see these wonderful gestures, in particular, like almost an arabesque arms as he stretches out in that space there. And he's very inspiring to many of his students. Here I am, just talking in one of the studios to students. And again, I hate to point out that I've got my cigarette in my hand. And in those days, it's really terrible. In those days, Eugene smoked, I smoked, a lot of us smoked, and it's really terrible. But we actually smoked in the studios with dancers present, which is just a no-no. But at that time, we didn't seem to know any better. Here I'm giving a class in the studio, and I don't never know quite why it's off balance, but that's the photograph I have to find. Oh yes, here. This was in our second season, and this is I'm dancing. It's I'm playing as an actor. I'm playing the part of Puck in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Clayton Garrison directed it, and Eugene Loring did the sequences, the dance sequences of the fairies in the play. We had Stanley Holden. No, Stanley. I've forgotten his last name, but he was an actor in the movies who came in to play Bottom. So there was a tradition at UCI in those days. It started the tradition where the faculty might perform, but more importantly, they had people from the outside come in as guest artists from time to time. So here I am doing this role as an actor, and then the next one, Rita, because I'm a dancer, I also brought in the element of moving in space, turning and jumping, and to enliven my role as Puck, this mischievous little fellow. And down right is this Doug Oliver again, who you saw him earlier next with Clayton in the other play. This is one of my ballets. We're in the dance studio, the main dance studio, the first one we had, the big one. And the woman who's being supported here is her name is Penelope Hanstein. She went on to become a professor at Texas Women's University and also the dean of that school, and has done an incredible lot with it. But anyway, here she is as a master's student at UCI. This was called Crystal Caves. I loved the work because I had a big, huge mirror at the back of the stage lying flat on the floor, and as the ballet proceeded, the mirror kept coming up slowly throughout, so the audience suddenly, at some point, becomes part of the ballet itself. So they start to see themselves there. They suddenly are merging into the ballet, and by the end of it, there's no distinction between the audience and the dancers. And so for me, that was kind of a fun, exciting concept. So the next ballet, another ballet I did there is called Timeline, because I was kind of interested. I mentioned the T.S. Eliot, and I was interested in the fact these had three men in the back who were moving in slow motion, and they had these long poles, so I got all these geometrical shapes going on with the men and the poles in the background. And then in the front, Cynthia Sears was one of our students at the time, was dancing this frenetic dance. So I got this real contrast going on in time between the slow motion and fast movement. And so it was kind of set up a lot of tension in the audience and those who perceived. So that was Timeline. The tradition at UCI is you bring in really well-known people to come and teach, and their guests. This is Anthony Tudor. Anthony Tudor is one of the foremost choreographers of the 20th century. He did real psychological ballets, if you don't know who he is. He worked with theme and variation. As he said, I do a theme, and then all my ballets are based on theme and then variations on that theme. Well, he came there for 3 years, for 1 quarter in those 3-year period. And so here he is lecturing to students, and I'm sitting next to him as he's talking to the students, because I think at this time I was probably chair. I don't remember for sure, but anyway, Tudor's lecturing. I'm in the dance studio. Interesting, when he was American Ballet Theater too, and he looked after the English ballets, and Loring looked after the American ballets. And so the two of them here, years later, are working here at UC Irvine. So that's kind of a nice connection, bringing him out. He was a wonderful, kind of had a reputation as having kind of a acerbic wit, and that he was quite gentle at UCI, I think, compared to what his reputation was. But anyway, I started to say that in England as a student, he was living above the theater Ballet Rambert, which is, I don't know if it still exists now, but there was a studio there, and they took classes downstairs. So he was just a student. He was working to clean the studios and so forth and so on. So the point is that everybody starts somewhere, and then they hopefully rise to some kind of prominence as he did, and contributed so much to our history, our ballet history. He would set some of his works on the dancers at UCI, and this particular one is called Sunflowers, and you can see the quality of our dancers with their on point doing this particular ballet, and it was had a lot of tension in it, the psychological things. So there was a lot of drama that was being set up here, a lot of anxiety and anxious and what's going on. So anyway, he did a number of his ballets for us. This next one is a dance concert, because all of our concerts at UCI, if you've come to them, you'll notice that there's always more than one choreographer. And I want to point this one out because here we are, Eugene Loring choreographing, Anthony Tudor choreographing, I'm choreographing, and Jan Plastina's choreographing. The interesting thing to me is that here are these two really, really world-famous ballet choreographers, and Jan and I are still relatively young in our life and our career, and so we're actually participating in this particular production. And we were the equal of these two wonderful guys. I really was known as a dancer and a choreographer and all this sort of thing, but I got interested in talking about dance and writing about dance, so I did a lot of articles and things of it, and took a part in the international, or particularly the national scene of the arts. And here I am at the National Dance Association, which was the leading organization for dance at that time, gave me their Scholar of the Year award and recognized me for my scholarship as well as just for my dancing. Jan and I, after the whole thing, are doing a little dance for the people assembled to make sure that they all knew we still dance as well. Okay, and the next is what we do. Okay, this particular one is Jan Plastino, because everybody who comes to the campus, and they bring something new to it. Jan's, one of her great contributions is that she set up the dance medicine program, which is a national thing, international thing, and she's a part of that whole group, and she brought to the campus, let's make sure the dancers are well taken care of. So if they're injured, they're immediately treated, they can be wrapped up, put back on the stage if need be. But anyway, they're taken care of, and that was a major contribution, and how come I appreciate that. Okay, and in the middle is Olga Maynard, who is no longer with us. She was a very well-known international journalist who wrote for Dance magazine at the time. And one of the things that Olga gave to the school, she set up the special dance collection at UCI. And so she gave her papers, and she got a tutor and various people to give their papers to that. So it is now, as I said, a very well recognized thing. And then I'm on the end over there. We're after a graduation ceremony, obviously. Here is one set of the faculty. It's not all of them, and it's not everybody is there that's worked for the school. Each group of people who come in gives something. In this case, there are 15 people on the faculty, and not that many there probably. But up here on the upper left, you will see Donald McKell, who's just retired. He had a big retirement party to raise funds for scholarships for modern dance. So Donald is a well-known choreographer, again, Broadway, movies, television, so forth. He's considered one of our national treasures, 100 most important people in dance. So Donald brought a lot to the department. Down below him in blue is David Allen, who, when he joined the faculty, he did some beautiful ballets for the dancers. He raised a lot of money to bring in male dancers particularly, so that it really raised the standard of what we could do there when we had male dancers there. Okay, he also took our dancers to Europe on a number of festivals. In the middle, I want to point out the woman with she has these little thing around her neck. That's Nancy Reuter, who is historian and brought a lot of the ethnic dance to the campus, flamenco and so forth. Next to her, going that way, is L. Gabriel, who was the third person hired at UCI in the dance department. And up until just a couple of years ago, where he had an accident and couldn't no longer perform there, he was very active. The students loved him. He was a very beloved teacher. Next to him is Lisa Noggle, and I'll talk about her in a minute. And I won't talk about the others for now. Oh, this is our current chancellor. This was a farewell thing they gave me in the art gallery, a very big affair, and I thought, wow, this is nice. But anyway, they gave that to me, and seeing the current chancellor reminds me of the first chancellor, who was Dan Aldridge, and he was a really great guy. He did that whole Dan Aldridge Park out there, put all those wonderful trees in. He, for some reason, I happened to be in his office, and for I don't know why, just the two of us were there, but he stood out, looking out over toward town center, and he was looking out the window, and he got a little, like a little visionary. He was looking out that window, and he said, "Nothing out there, right? There's nothing out there." He looked out through there, and he said, "You know, someday I really envision seeing the city of Irvine growing and expanding out there." And so it's kind of a chilling moment for me, and it all came to pass, his vision. But at that point, when he was looking out there, there wasn't nothing there. Next to me is Alan Turchiano. Alan Turchiano came to the faculty, and he's a composer and musician, great in both, and he brought a lot of that talent to the department. So he helped shape collaborations between the music department and the dance department. And in this particular shot, he had just left the chairmanship of the dance department, and he is the acting dean here. And then next to him on the end is our current chair, Lisa Noggle. Lisa brought a lot of things to the campus as well. She was interested in technology, and she had a studio when she first came built for her to do motion capture, where they put little points on the body joints, and you see the dancer going onto the camera, where you see them moving like a stick figure. So you can analyze what's happening with the levers of the body as it's moving there. And so that sort of got us started in more technology in the dance department, which now we're quite well known for, dance department with technology. And a lot of students are now coming here for that purpose. I found this little thing about Jerry Seinfeld, and I don't think associate him necessarily with movement, but I thought, we have to move. Spending more and more time sitting in my office, and I was still teaching, but I was not teaching the way I did as a younger person. So my body just suddenly started going down, and one day we'd been doing graduate interviews for students. We'd spent the whole day sitting in these cold rooms, and I left there, and my God, I felt awful. I felt terrible, and I had trouble walking out of the room. And I don't know what happened to me, but my body started going like this, and I started getting humped over, and I got to the point where I was having hard trouble walking, and I had a cane, and I was walking with the cane, and I now could walk pretty well. I don't know if you noticed me walking in, but I'm moving quite well now, and I'm moving, and I train every day. I train 3 times a week with this wonderful man, Hakan. And here I am with my foot on one of the things he's giving me as an exercise is playing soccer with him. So I'm working with this professional soccer player, kicking this ball around. And I thought, oh, junior high school. I did that at junior high school, kicking that ball around. And he says, God, you're really good at this. And I thought, well, yeah, I did study it when I was younger. So anyway, this next one is Hakan. This is the gym we train in, and Hakan was showing off by getting up on the bicycle, standing up there. He's a great clown, if you will, a great actor, and he does all these wonderful things. He takes great risks. He's injured himself a number of times since I've known him, and had to rehabilitate himself. But anyway, I feel the need for fitness is we've all got to keep moving, and that if we don't, we're going to, just whatever's going to happen to us. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, hi.